Hey guys, in this tutorial we are going to create a character by importing a skeletal mesh and seeing if we can give it some animation. Now, importing skeletal mesh can be kind of a complicated task, especially if things aren't set up correctly. So this tutorial will hopefully resolve some of those issues that you might hit. So first off, let us open, or you can create a new project. I'm just going to go to the environment tutorial that I used last time. We got our forest assets here. And we're going to get our character to replace this guy. But let's create a new directory, and we will call it characters. Or let's call it character. And then we are going to import a character from the KayKit Adventures pack. And I'll put a link in the description if you want to follow along with the same asset pack. But let's actually take a look at those files first. So we go to my downloads and go to the Adventures pack. The characters are inside this characters directory, and they got FBX and GLTF. And as you can see, the characters have their own little palette textures that have gradients on them. But I'm just going to open up Blender and show you how the meshes are arranged. Okay, let's go ahead and import some characters, or a character. Import GLTF. We go to where the KayKit Adventure pack is, characters directory, and GLTF. And let's go ahead and import Barbarian. Why not? Okay, so here we are. Now you'll notice that each body part is its own separate mesh, even though they all have the same material. And maybe that was designed that way so you can switch out the different characters' body parts and legs and clothing and stuff. But it's usually best in Octave to have everything be the same model or the same mesh. So I'm going to combine these different objects together, but I'll show you if you do have multiple materials how to do that. I'll leave the bear helmet, the bear hat as a separate object and show you how to set it up inside Octave. So let's go ahead, shift click these guys. Control J. Now these are one mesh. Let's take a look at the animations. Go to the dope sheet. Okay, we'll go to pose mode, select all, go to the action editor, and you'll see that there are no actions or animations. And that's because this pack has all the animations on one different rig. I'm going to rename this to Barbarian rig because it might overlap with the other rig. So now let's go import the other rig that has the animations. Back to import GLTF, go up directory or two, animations, GLTF. There's two different rigs, one for movement and one for other stuff. Let's start with movement. And let's shift click on this guy to hide him. Okay. So we have walking, T-pose, running, jumping. Okay, this rig doesn't have an idle animation, so I'm going to rename it to movement rig and then import the general one because I know that rig has an idle animation. Okay, and then you'll see that we have a lot more animations like idle. Actually, the run might be easier to see. The walk. If we go to pose mode, select all the bones, you can see the keyframes here. It only goes to frame 25. So we'll just set the range from 0 to 25. Okay. So we have animations here. And since these bones have the same name as the Barbarian, it should just work. Because now those animations are inside Blender. We'll select from the dropdown and we will go to walking A. Okay, cool. Oh, and also I'm going to rename these. It'll be a little bit easier in the editor. I'll call this guy walking. This guy we will change to just idle. Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay, jump start. Yeah, okay, jump start. And we have like a falling or jump idle. Is that what? I guess the jump idle is what we'll play on loop in the air. Okay, so let's call it jump loop. Okay, now let's go ahead and export the meshes. So we are going to select the barbarian body and then also make sure to select his armature. And then you're going to file export gltf, placing this in a care tutorial directory. And we're going to call it sk barbarian. Yeah, sk barbarian's fine. And make sure to select only include selected objects, because Octave can only import one skeletal mesh at a time in a GLB file, at least in version 5. It's been fixed so that you can import multiple ones on main, but there actually is a benefit to importing them separately, because you can control what animation data gets linked to a skeletal mesh. And basically, we're going to put all of our animation data onto the main body and remove it from the hat. So let's export this and make sure you have animation checked. Okay, now let's unselect the body and select the bear hat and export that guy, but turn animation off. And we'll call it sk barbarian hat. Okay, let's hop back over to the engine and let us try spawning our skeletal mesh, but first we have to import them. So let's go to that directory I put it, and we'll import both of these guys. So if I go to the properties here, okay, you can see all of the animations. But on the hat, there are no animations, and that's what we want. So I'll right click and go instantiate. There he is. And let's try giving him the idle animation. Okay, it's working. If I give him the walk animation, okay, there he goes. We need to make a material for him, so I guess we can go ahead and do that. I will import that texture. Okay, barbarian texture. I usually put T in front of my textures. It's just a convention, though. You don't have to do that. Something very important I need to point out is that the texture that the barbarian is using is way too big for consoles. It's 1024 by 1024, and I really would try to keep all textures to 256 by 256. Or if they're not even compressed, then keep them at 128 by 128 or lower. So because these are gradients, we don't want to make them compressed, or else it'll be really blocky. Generally, more noisy textures you can use compressed and it looks fine. But for this, we're going to keep it at RGBA8, and we are going to change the low quality downsample factor, which means on consoles, if we set this to 2, it will downsample it 1 time and a half to 512 by 512. If we do it to 3, it'll be 256 by 256. And if we do it by 4, it'll be 128 by 128. And of course, you could also just manually resize this texture in like Photoshop or Krita and then import it then. But this is just a convenient way if you want a lower quality texture for the consoles. And we will press Control M to make a material with that. And you'll see that it has T Barbarian assigned. So now we just need to assign it to SK Barbarian. So I'll click on the material, click here to assign it. Hey, there he is. Okay. And if we wanted to add the bear hat, let's go ahead and save the mesh. Now we change the material on it. For the bear hat, so let's go to this this node. If you alt click on the node in the 3D viewport, it'll take you right to it in the scene outliner. Let's create a child skeletal mesh. We'll add basic 3D skeletal mesh. We have the hat selected, so it automatically selects it. But you see, it's not using the skeleton or the animation rather from the barbarian. And so what we can do is here. Let's rename this to barbarian. We go to the hat, you can click Inherit Pose, and as long as the meshes have the same number of bones, it'll let you do that. You should make sure they actually are using the same skeleton. But there we go. The hat's now moving along as it should. And we can also go ahead and assign the barbarian material to the hat. Oh, that looks pretty badass. Wow. Okay, right-click Save. So next up, we are going to try to get our character to replace this mesh in the third-person pawn. If you're enjoying this tutorial so far and you want to help support Octave and make it the best retro game engine possible, then consider joining the Patreon, where each month you can vote on the next engine features that I add, and your name will also be added to the credits. It would also really help if you like the video and subscribe. Okay, back to the tutorial, thank you. And if we take a look at the third-person pawn, I'll click on him, go to a skeletal mesh. He's using SK Allegro. He has these animations, so the controller doesn't actually use the attack animation at all, but he has one. But it does use fall, idle, jump, and run. So you could change the script to call our animations that we named, but just to make it easy, we are going to re-export him with fall, idle, jump, and run animations. So let's go do that right now. We re-import this guy, it should be fixed. So go scrap, character tutorial, this guy. Right, and so our idle animation, or our default animation was walking, but now it is run. Let's make a copy of this third person pawn. So when we do this, you can open the scene. This pawn is found in the engine assets, but we're going to make a copy and replace him and keep it in our project. So what you can do is do File, Save Scene As, and we'll call it SC Barbarian. Perfect. And now let's start replacing him. I'll rename him to Barbarian. Skeletal mesh. You know we need our Barbarian mesh. Okay, he is flipped around, which might be a problem. We'll see. And let's also give him the hat. And make sure the hat is inheriting the pose. Okay, I'm going to save that. Let's go back to our game. We'll select our third person pawn and delete him and put our barbarian down. So we'll save the game, hit play. Okay, it's kind of working, except he's in reverse. We could try changing the skeletal mesh direction, but I believe that is getting overridden in the script. We could fix this in the script, or we rotate him in here. Select both these guys, RZ, 180, and I'll apply the rotation. And let's re-export them one last time. By the way, I wanted to point out that this character is a bit unoptimized for retro consoles, or at least for the Octave engine, because it has quite a few bones. We select all the bones. We go to statistics, you will see that there are 23 bones. And on 3DS, Octave supports up to 16 bones in a mesh in order to be skinned on the GPU. And on GameCube and Wii, it's only 10 bones, which isn't much at all. If you go above these bone limits, these bone counts, they will be skinned on the CPU, which can be expensive, especially if your mesh has a lot of vertices. So keep that in mind. You could possibly split up the mesh, but generally I just try to stay under that 16 bone limit. Re-import these guys one more time. Click the material first just so it automatically gets assigned when you re-import it. Okay, well that's kind of cool. Re-import the hat. Okay. Now when we play, oh, he's looking the correct direction. Oh, that's right. He is scaled a little big. Always scale him down. I'm scaling him in Plane Editor right now, but yeah. So that is how you can add a character. And if you are also writing scripts, make sure to check out the script for the third person character controller, because it's not too long and you can easily change it and modify it to fit your needs. So that's all for this tutorial. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.